I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but here I am trying to make sense of what's happening. My name's Mike, and I've been with my wife, Lisa, for about 7 years now. We got married pretty young, and honestly, I always thought we had a good thing going. She's smart, beautiful, a little bitchy sometimes, but that's just her attitude. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never suspected things would blow up the way they did. It started a few months ago when I noticed she was acting weird. Little things at first. She'd be distracted in bed, more distant when we'd hang out with friends. She'd cancel plans last minute, saying she was too busy with work or some community project she was so obsessed with. She kept talking about her sustainable community meetings, which, honestly, I didn't put much thought into at the time. I just figured she was trying to do something meaningful, maybe involving her job as a climate refugee resettlement coordinator. She's passionate about that stuff, always talking about making a difference, saving the planet, all that eco bullshit. But then I started noticing her phone more and more. She'd hide it when I entered the room, keep it close at all times, even when she was in the shower or in the bathroom. That was odd because before she was pretty open about her phone. And her texts. They were mostly work-related, sure, but sometimes she'd get these weird, quick messages, short, vague, and she'd quickly swipe away if I glanced over. It was enough to raise my suspicions, but not enough to make me go full paranoid. Then came the night I caught her. I was supposed to be out late for a work dinner, but I got a gut feeling that something was off. I decided to check her phone, something I hate doing, but I couldn't shake this feeling. I unlocked her screen and there was a message thread with someone named Jake. No big deal, right? Except the messages weren't about work. They were flirty, really flirtatious, like they had some secret code going on. I saw her send a photo of herself in a model home. She was in some kind of staged living room, pretending to be doing something community planning. It looked suspicious because she kept talking about how perfect it all was, how she was making a difference, and how she was so tired of fake people. I felt my stomach drop when I read that. She was lying about her meetings. She wasn't just at some boring planning sessions, she was meeting this Jake guy. I looked at the timestamps and it was clear they'd been texting for weeks, maybe months. The worst part, she kept calling him babe and saying she couldn't wait to see him again. I stared at the screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. I don't even remember how I managed to put the phone down without making a sound. That was the moment I realized my wife was cheating on me, and it wasn't just a one-time thing. I knew deep down this was more than a mistake or a fling. It was a relationship, probably physical, that she had kept hidden behind her good girl image. I didn't know what to do at first. My mind was racing. I felt betrayed, humiliated, furious. How could Lisa, the woman I trusted, do this? And why? What was she getting out of it? Was I just some placeholder for her while she had her fun in secret? All those questions kept circling, but I couldn't get past the way my stomach clenched every time I thought about her in that model home, meeting this Jake guy, pretending she was working on some noble cause. And then, in a moment of impulsiveness, I decided I needed to confront her. I wanted answers, and I needed to see her reaction face to face. I waited until she came home from one of her community meetings, which I now knew was a lie. When she stepped inside that night, I was sitting on the couch, her phone in my hand. She looked surprised, then annoyed. She snapped at me, trying to brush it off, but I wasn't having it. I told her I knew everything. I told her I saw her messages, her pictures, everything. And that's when her attitude shifted. She got defensive, spat out some bullshit about how it was just emotional support, that she was stressed and needed someone to talk to. She kept calling me paranoid, accusing me of mistrusting her, saying I was overreacting. But I wasn't buying it. To me, that was just her way of trying to minimize what she'd done. The fact that she lied so damn effortlessly, trying to turn it around on me, made me realize she's a master manipulator. And I felt even more betrayed because I had always believed she was honest, loyal, even if she was a pain in the ass most of the time. That night, I felt like I was looking at a stranger, someone I didn't even recognize. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone who could cheat, lie, and dismiss my feelings as if I was nothing. I didn't cry or yell, at least not then. I just sat there, stunned, trying to process what I just found out, knowing that this was only the beginning of what was coming next. After that night, everything changed. I remember sitting there in silence, staring at her, feeling this weird mix of rage and heartbreak. The way she dismissed it as emotional support made me want to punch the wall. Honestly, I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept circling around her lies, her betrayal, and the fact that I was apparently married to someone who could so easily lie and cheat behind my back. The next morning, I decided I had to get more answers. I couldn't just leave it at her denial. I needed to know how far this thing went. So I started digging. I went through her emails, her social media, and everything else I could find. And what I uncovered was even worse than I expected. She'd been sneaking around with Jake for months, meeting him in those model homes during their community planning meetings, whenever she thought I wouldn't notice. There were receipts, bank transactions, hotel bookings, even a few photos of her and him together in some weird, staged hotel room. She told me she was working late or volunteering at some event, but no. She was with him doing God knows what. It was all laid bare, and I felt like my world was shattering. The hurt was so raw it made me physically sick. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I kept asking myself those questions, knowing I'd never get a real truthful answer from her. The trust was gone, completely obliterated. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger, someone capable of this level of deception, someone who'd betrayed everything we'd built. I knew. I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. So I sat her down again because I wanted to hear her lie to my face now that I had all the evidence. I told her I knew everything, about Jake, the hotel, the meetings, everything. Her reaction was a mix of fury and condescension. She started yelling at me, calling me paranoid, accusing me of snooping, and claiming I was overreacting. She called me insecure, called me jealous. Said I was imagining things, that she was just stressed with the community project, that she loved me but needed this outlet because I was too busy with work. She even had the nerve to say I was the one cheating because I was so obsessed with her phone. That hurt more than anything else. Hearing her say I was the one cheating when I just caught her with her lover was almost laughable. I told her she was full of shit, that she didn't love me, not really. I told her I was done, that I wanted to know what she really wanted, and that I wasn't going to sit around and be played for a fool anymore. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, that I was just jealous because she was prettier, smarter, and more successful than any other woman she knew. That was her go-to line. Classic Lisa, charming, bitchy, and always spinning her web of lies. I got up then, told her I needed some space, and walked out. I went for a drive, trying to clear my head, but honestly, I just kept thinking about everything I'd seen and heard. The betrayal cut so deep I didn't even know who I was anymore. I'd always believed in us, in our relationship, and now I was questioning if I'd been blind the whole time. How could I have missed all the signs? How could she lie so convincingly? And the worst part, how do I even look at her now without feeling disgusted? That day was a turning point. I knew I had to make a decision, but I wasn't ready yet. I still loved her, I think, but that love was buried under layers of hurt and anger. I kept telling myself I'd give her a chance to explain, to come clean, but deep down I knew the truth. She was done with me, and she was fine with her secret. Life. The question was whether I could live with knowing that, whether I wanted to try to salvage what was left, or just cut my losses and walk away. It was terrifying because I was scared of losing everything, but I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine anymore. That night, I sat alone, staring at the ceiling, trying to understand how someone I loved could betray me so completely. All I wanted was honesty, but I wasn't even sure she knew what that was anymore. Whatever came next, I knew my life would never be the same. The days that followed were some of the hardest I've ever experienced. I oscillated between anger, sadness, and a strange numbness that crept in whenever I tried to process everything. Every time I saw her, Lisa, I felt this overwhelming urge to scream or cry or just run far away. But I didn't. Instead, I kept quiet, playing it cool, waiting for her to say something, anything, that might explain why she'd done this or maybe just admit she was wrong. But she didn't. Not at first. Instead, she started acting even more bitchy and dismissive, like she thought she could just brush everything under the rug, act like it was no big deal. She would throw attitude, roll her eyes, or act snide whenever I brought up the topic of her infidelity. She'd call me paranoid or accuse me of spying on her, like I was some jealous psycho, instead of a husband who just found out his wife was screwing another man. That's when I realized she was trying to gaslight me, trying to flip the script, make me doubt myself. But I wasn't about to let her do that. I repeated over and over that I knew she was lying, that I had the evidence, and that I wasn't going to be made a fool of. Still, she kept spinning her stories, insisting she was just stressed, that Jake was just a friend, that I was making mountains out of molehills. She tell me she was tired of my accusations, tired of my suspicions, and that I needed to trust her. Yeah, trust her, after all I'd seen. That was laughable. Meanwhile, I decided I had to get some proper clarity. I couldn't keep living in this limbo of doubt, so I started planning. I needed to know what her real intentions were. I wanted to catch her in the act if I could. I figured I'd set a trap, maybe catch her talking to him again, or maybe even follow her one day. I also wanted her to come clean on her own, to see how she'd react when she was faced with the truth. One afternoon, she went out for a walk, which was code for meeting Jake again. I followed her a few blocks away from home, keeping my distance but close enough to see what she was up to. Sure enough, she went into a small, dingy-looking coffee shop. I waited outside, trying to keep my composure, watching her sit with this guy. They were laughing, leaning in, and she kept touching his arm like they were close. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but the way she looked at him, it was clear she was into him. It was sickening. That moment I realized I had to do something drastic. I couldn't just sit back and let her continue this secret life. I needed her to see that I knew that I wasn't going to be played forever. I also knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine, not anymore. So I decided to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I was going to catch her in the act, or at least make her realize I wasn't some naive fool. I wanted her to see that I was serious about ending this if she didn't come clean. When she got home that evening, I was already waiting. She looked annoyed, like I was ruining her fun, but I didn't care. I told her I knew about her meeting Jake, about how I followed her, and how I'd seen enough to know everything. Her face twisted into a sneer, and she started with her usual bullshit. "You're crazy. You're overreacting. This is all in your head." I cut her off, told her I didn't care what she called it. I told her I'd seen her with him, that I had proof, and that I was done playing her games. Her reaction was classic Lisa, defensive, dismissive, full of rage. She screamed about how I was stalking her, how I was crazy, and that I had no right to control her. She insisted that she loved me. She was only doing this for us, that she was trying to better herself, to help the community, to make a difference. And she called me insecure, said I was jealous of her success, jealous of Jake because he was better than me. That's when I really lost it. I told her she was full of shit, that I was done trusting her, and that she could go to hell. That night I slept on the couch, feeling this intense mixture of betrayal and disgust. I kept replaying everything she said, every lie she threw my way. I realized that I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. I loved her, or at least I thought I did, but her lies and betrayals had shattered that love into a million pieces. I knew I couldn't keep doing this, living with someone who didn't respect me enough to be honest, someone who'd cheat behind my back and then lie her way out of it. Deep down, I knew I had a choice. I could either keep fighting to save this mess of a marriage, or I could cut my losses and walk away. The temptation to stay, too, try to fix things, was huge, because I still loved her, or maybe just missed what we had. But every time I thought about her with Jake, touching him, lying to my face, it made my stomach turn. I couldn't do this anymore, not like this. The betrayal had changed everything, and I could feel I was about to make some kind of decision that would define the rest of my life. The days that followed were a blur of sleepless nights and endless thought. I kept asking myself if I should confront her again, or just pack my bags and walk out. Part of me wanted to believe she'd come clean, that maybe she'd realize what she'd lost and come back with some kind of honest explanation. But deep down, I knew that was wishful thinking. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize anymore, and the evidence I had wouldn't just disappear. One thing I knew for sure was that I couldn't keep living in this limbo. I had to make some decisions fast. I wasn't going to be the idiot who stayed and got played forever. I started by gathering everything I could: screenshots of messages, bank receipts, hotel bookings, her emails. I wanted to be prepared, just in case I needed to show her how much I knew or to prove to myself that I wasn't imagining things. The more I dug, the angrier I got. It was like peeling an onion, each layer revealing a deeper level of betrayal. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in the living room, staring at her phone. It was lying on the table, buzzing every few minutes with new messages from Jake. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't resist. I unlocked it, and what I saw made my blood boil. She'd been exchanging explicit texts with him, talking about sex, plans to meet again, and even sharing some naked photos. I'd always been naive, believing she was just sneaking around for emotional support, but now I saw the full picture. This wasn't just cheating, it was something far messier. I kept telling myself I had to confront her again, but I also knew that was probably pointless. She'd deny everything, spin her web of lies, and make me doubt my own judgment. But I couldn't just let it go. I needed her to see that I wasn't some idiot who'd accept her bullshit anymore. So I drafted a message, cold, straightforward, and to the point. I told her I knew everything about the sex, the hotel, the payoffs, everything. I told her I was done, that I couldn't stay with someone who lied and cheated like she had. I said I was going to leave unless she came clean and told me the truth. When she came home that evening, I was sitting on the couch, phone in hand. She looked annoyed, like I was bothering her, but I didn't care. I told her I had more evidence, screenshots, recordings, whatever I could gather. I told her I knew about the sex, the hotel, everything. Her face went pale for a second, then she started yelling. Tried to deny it all, call me crazy, accuse me of spying. She said she loved me, that it meant nothing, and that I was just jealous. That was her usual line. I looked her straight in the eye and told her I was done listening to her lies, that I knew she'd been lying to my face for months. I told her I didn't want to hear her excuses anymore, because there weren't any good ones. I said I was tired of her bullshit, tired of feeling like I was stupid for trusting her. And then I told her I was leaving tonight. I had packed a bag earlier that day, just in case, and I told her she could keep her stories, her lies, her community meetings, and her lover. I was done. She didn't argue much after that. She just looked at me, eyes filled with fury, and spat out some more lies. Said I'd never find anyone better, that I was just insecure and jealous, that I'd regret throwing away everything we built. I told her she was full of shit and walked out of the house. That was the last time I saw her that night. I didn't look back. I just got in my car and drove away, feeling a strange mixture of relief and despair. The aftermath hit me hard. I stayed with a friend for a few days, trying to get my head straight. The house felt empty without her, like a shell of what it used to be. I kept replaying everything I'd learned, all the lies she'd told, all the times I'd trusted her blindly. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and honestly kind of stupid. How could I have missed all the signs? How did I not see her for what she was? And then the guilt set in. Did I push her away? Was I too controlling, too jealous? Or was she simply evil, capable of this from the start? I've come to realize that sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes the person you trust the most turns out to be the one betraying you in ways you never imagined. I still miss what we had, but I also know I deserve better. I can't live with someone who lies and cheats, no matter how much history we share. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you to be stronger, to value yourself enough to walk away when someone crosses a line they can't come back from. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't let this define me, at least, not forever. The weeks after I left her house were some of the most intense of my life. I was grieving, angry, and confused all at once. Every morning I woke up with her face in my mind, and every night I went to bed wondering if I'd made the right choice. Part of me kept thinking maybe I was overreacting, that I should have tried to work things out, that maybe she'd come back and tell me she was sorry. But deep down I knew better. I saw too much, I knew what she was capable of, and I couldn't unsee it. I started focusing on myself, trying to get some clarity. I blocked her number, deleted her from social media, and tried to cut her out of my head. But of course, my mind kept circling back to the betrayal, replaying every moment like a bad movie. I also started seeing a therapist, someone I could talk to without judgment. It helped a little, but honestly, nothing could erase what I'd experienced. That feeling of being so blindsided, so utterly betrayed, it's a wound that takes time to heal if it ever does. Meanwhile, Lisa was still in my life, in a way. She kept texting me, trying to guilt-trip me or manipulate me into coming back. She'd send messages about how she was sorry, confused, and didn't mean for it to happen. She'd say she loved me and that she'd do anything to fix this, but I saw right through her. I knew her game now. She was trying to guilt me into taking her back to make me doubt my decision. I refused to fall for it. I was done being played. Then one day she showed up at my apartment unexpectedly. I wasn't expecting her, and when I saw her standing there, my stomach clenched. She looked different, more desperate, maybe even a little broken. She tried to play it cool, acting like she was just stopping by to talk, but I wasn't buying it. I told her to leave, that I didn't want to see her or hear her lies anymore. She looked hurt, probably because she realized I was serious. But I also felt a strange sense of relief. This chapter was closing, and I needed it to stay closed. Still, what haunted me was the thought of her moving on, probably with Jake or someone else. I wondered if she ever felt guilty, if she ever thought about how much she'd hurt me. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. What mattered was that I had stood up for myself, finally. I had taken control. I learned that sometimes the only way to heal is to cut out the poison. That meant cutting out her lies, her manipulations, her betrayal. In the end, I realized this experience changed me. It made me question a lot about trust, about relationships, and about my own instincts. I learned to listen to that little voice inside that warns you when something's off. I also learned that love isn't enough if it's not built on honesty and mutual respect. I may have lost a wife, but I gained a new sense of self-respect. I've come to accept that some people aren't meant to be in your life forever, especially if they're capable of such deception. Now I'm taking it day by day. I'm still healing, still rebuilding my confidence. I don't have all the answers, and maybe I never will, but I do know that I'm better off without someone who lies and cheats. I just wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but that's life. Sometimes you have to go through hell to realize what you deserve, and I know I deserve better. I'll never trust blindly again, but I will trust myself. And that, for me, is the biggest lesson of all. Looking back, I realize how much this whole mess has changed me. I used to believe in fairy tale endings. You find someone you love, you get married, and everything just works out. But real life isn't like that. Real life throws betrayal, heartbreak, and hard lessons right at you. I learned that the hard way. The woman I thought I knew turned out to be someone I barely recognized, and her lies almost destroyed me. One thing I've come to understand is that trust is fragile. It takes years to build and seconds to shatter. I also learned that sometimes love isn't enough to hold everything together when the foundation is rotten. There was a time I thought I could fix this, that if I just loved her enough, she'd realize what she was losing. But love isn't enough when the person you love is willing to betray everything you stand for. That was a brutal lesson, but one I needed to learn. More than anything, I've realized that my happiness and self-respect matter more than holding onto something that was never real to begin with. I was too blinded by our history, our shared memories, and the idea of what I thought we had. I ignored the signs, ignored my instincts, and paid a heavy price. Now I see things more clearly. I see who she really was, someone capable of deception and manipulation, someone who valued their own desires over honesty and loyalty. I won't pretend I'm completely healed or that I've moved on entirely. It's a process, and it's going to take time. But I know I'm better off without her. I've started focusing on myself, my career, my friends, my future. I've cut out all the toxic bullshit, and I refuse to let this define me. The pain is still there, but so is the strength I never knew I had. To anyone reading this who's been through something similar, here's my advice. Trust your gut. Don't ignore the little things that don't sit right. Be honest with yourself about what you're willing to accept. Because once that trust is broken, it's almost impossible to repair. And if someone cheats on you, no matter how much history you share, You deserve honesty and respect, nothing less. I lost a wife, but I gained clarity. I lost my illusion of perfect love, but I found a new respect for myself. That's something no betrayal can take away. I'm still healing, still moving forward, but I'm also finally free from the lies. And in the end, that's what matters most.